In 2022, the entire world wanted Lionel Messi to win the World Cup with Argentina, who were the underdogs. They were simply loved by every fan. However, in 2026, even if they had more or less the same team, the opposite happened. Nobody wanted to see them win again. In fact, they turned into the most hated team in football. So my question is, how does a team everyone rooted for turn into the most hated one? Because Argentina isn't alone. Arsenal, Manchester United, Real Madrid, they are all facing the same issue. Therefore, we are going to go over why the best teams in the world always become the most hated. And the massive amount of hate actually starts with love, because we humans are interesting creatures. See, we always like to root for the underdogs, as it provides a payout without any risk. If the underdogs we are rooting for fail, there are no expectations anyway. But if they end up winning, we get rewarded by our own brains by being different in supporting a team no one else cheered for. However, there is one more interesting thing that happens when underdogs succeed. People start resenting them and want to cut them down to size. Take Argentina in 2022 for example. It was the narrative of Messi's last dance. It was his last chance to finally win the most desired trophy. And even if they still had some fans hating them, it really felt like everyone still wanted them to win. Yes, there was still a lot of controversy and fans yelling rigged, but that's because it seemed like the whole world wanted Argentina to finally do it. By 2026 though, the story was completed. Instead of being a fairy tale, Messi and Argentina became an obstacle for the other underdogs. There was no reason for fans to support them anymore. In addition, their playing style has been disgusting, and I have been rooting for them the entire tournament. Still, Argentina only played real football in the last 10 to 20 minutes of games. But again, the biggest reason why they got so much hate was that they simply weren't the underdogs anymore. Same case with Arsenal. Yes, they, like Argentina, are not playing the most entertaining football, but it goes way deeper than that. See, Arsenal are not a banter club anymore. They became a real threat in the Premier League, and recently in the Champions League as well. They got over their bottling era and are now winners, and it would be easy to say, well, they play dirty football and that's why they are hated. But we as humans simply don't function like that. Actually, dirty football is part of winning the biggest titles, and one team that immediately comes to my mind is Barcelona. They don't know how to play dirty football, and that's why with Hansi Flick they have been eliminated in the Champions League. And then think of Greece in 2004, a football miracle everyone talks with love about, but they played defensive, dirty and ugly football, yet no one hates on them because they were the underdogs. So the most probable answer you will hear when asking people why they hate teams like Argentina is because it's Argentina, or I don't know, I just want Messi to not win anything. This is why it's impossible to give a simple answer to the question of why the best teams in the world always get hated. But one thing we can do is find possible reasons. We already established that hate comes from love at first, when teams are only underdogs in a certain competition. But another motive is the shift in expectations. When a team's fan base gets used to winning, they go from hoping they'd win to demanding they win. And if you immediately thought about Real Madrid fans, you are 100% correct. They are known for booing their own players, disrespecting their own legends, and never being satisfied. In 2025-2026, they booed Kylian Mbappe, who is their best player currently, then Vinicius Jr., then Jude Bellingham. Real Madrid always act as the main characters. They even threatened to not play in the Copa del Rey final in 2024-2025 because referees were against them. Like, you get what I mean. And this is only because they are so used to winning. Real Madrid, hate them or love them, are the most successful European club ever. They have the most Champions League titles, and it has gotten so normal for them that when they lose, it's the end of the world. I genuinely heard Madrid fans talking about how did we survive 2025-2026, like they were some team fighting against relegation. But this summer, they are already spending hundreds of millions of dollars like nothing happened. Same scenario in the Premier League. Until now, everyone hated Manchester City because of how dominant they were and because of how much money they spent on players. But last season, when Arsenal were about to win the Premier League, suddenly everyone loved City and were rooting for them to win. The argument was that since City were so used to winning, not much will change if they end up as champions again. Well, in case Arsenal wins, their fans will become unbearable because of their new mentality. In Argentina's case, it was even the players who had shifted their way of acting. In 2022, they were the humble squad fighting for Messi, but after they won everything, they started mocking opponents, committing more fouls, and using dirty football. Because they were champions, and that's how champions play. But again, this wouldn't be enough for a team to get hated by the entire world. Therefore, our next reason is hate watching. This term became popular only recently, but it describes the practice of consuming media, such as a football team playing, that you strongly dislike or find terrible purely to derive amusement, pleasure, or social bonding from mocking and criticizing it. And it's a phenomenon way more common than you might expect. In fact, there were studies conducted on the brain to see why we enjoy hate watching so much. In a research done by Harvard, sports fans were put into MRI machines and made them watch their most hated rivals fail. The scans then showed that the moment a rival failed, there was a massive eruption of activity in the ventral striatum, basically the dopamine center of the brain. That same spot also lights up when humans experience primal pleasures, like eating good foods, winning a casino jackpot, or taking drugs. It feels insane to say this, but we actually enjoy big teams failing as much as we enjoy eating chocolate. This is because we get tired of seeing the same thing happening over and over again. In this case, the biggest teams winning. And it occurred during the 1990s and the 2000s, when Man United won 13 Premier Leagues, which gave birth to ABU, anyone but United. Fans from the Premier League rooted for their biggest rivals just to see United lose because they were tired of seeing them win every time. Reminds you of something? Try to remember how many times Ronaldo fans switched teams at this World Cup. From Austria to Cape Verde to Egypt, Switzerland, then England and Spain. They supported all of them in hope to see Messi lose. And it's just because our brains function that way. We actually get joy from seeing our rivals lose. Biological joy. It's why so often we can't explain why we hate a certain team. We just know that seeing them lose makes us happy, literally. We also hate because we get tired of seeing the same team win over and over again. Which brings us to our next reason: system fatigue. Think for a bit why we love football. There are hundreds of motives, but I'm sure one of them must be unpredictability. It's why we watch matches like Millwall against Man United. You never know who is going to win, especially because it's against United. But overall, this sport is very often impossible to predict. However, dominant teams destroy that. Everyone hates dominant teams because they make the sport boring. Like, take Man City for example. They were the most dominant team in the Premier League recently, but when they won 4 consecutive EPL titles, they weren't seen as an incredible side who just achieved one of the most insane things ever. It was just a squad who calculated every detail, analyzed everything, and got the results they predicted. City were a machine executing Guardiola's commands. So, do you get where this is going? Every match in the Prem became predictable. There was no suspense anymore. Arsenal would remain first for some time, then City would hit an incredible streak, and by the end, they would be champions again. For the other teams, it felt like their season didn't even matter, which of course generated a lot of hatred. Then we also have Real Madrid, who won 6 UCL titles in 10 years. What's the point of rooting for the team that will undoubtedly win again, just like they do every year? So we start unconsciously to hate them. We want to see surprises, underdogs winning, new incredible stories every year. So when the same dominant teams repeat the same season over and over again, it gets to a point where the only thing you can do is just hate them. So, what makes the biggest teams so hated? Well, it's a combination of being too good, too predictable, having crazy expectations, and going from "can they finally win it?" to "oh great, they are winning again." That being said, if you want to know what makes a team loved, please check out this video about Norway taking over the world.